Hello and welcome to this Business World Fireside conversation. I'm Meenu Siraslewala, and over this three-part series, we explore what digital transformation really means when banking operates at population scale, where scale, trust, and long-term responsibility converge. We talk about digital transformation almost too casually today. But when transformation moves from thousands to millions and then to hundreds of millions, the conversation changes. It stops being about technology choices and starts becoming about institutional judgment, what to modernize, what to protect, what you simply cannot afford to get wrong. So we are trying to anchor this fireside in that reality, understanding how digital transformation holds up when scale, sovereignty, and responsibility collide. So to explore this, we have with us two leaders who bring deeply complementary perspectives from large-scale banking and global enterprise technology. So to start with, we have with us Nitin Chugh, Deputy Managing Director and Head Digital Banking and Transformation, SBI. As we all know, SBI is India's largest public sector bank, originally started as Bank of Calcutta in 1806, laying a foundational role in the country's financial and economic infrastructure. Talking a little bit about Nitin. Nitin is a career banker with over 3 decades of experience across retail and digital banking. He has led digital transformation initiatives in large private sector banking environments, headed a small finance bank where inclusion, speed, and regulatory discipline had to work in unison, and today focuses on digital banking and transformation at population scale. So this journey also gives him a rare longitudinal perspective, on how transformation prioritizes evolve as scale, complexity, and accountability increase. Joining him, we have, and it's a pleasure to introduce Rajiv Shesh, the CRO for HCL Software. HCL Software is the enterprise software arm carved out of HCL Tech's deep engineering and services lineage. And HCL, as we all know, is one of India's leading earliest technology companies with roots in enterprise computing and engineering-led innovation that go back to the formative years of India's IT industry. Rajiv brings over 2.5 decades of experience building and scaling enterprise software and platforms. He played a pivotal role in shaping transformational partnerships, innovating business models, and scaling platforms across regulated industries and geographies. In his current role as the CRO at HCL Software, he oversees global revenue, customer advocacy, and long-term platform relationships. So his perspective also combines this deep engineering understanding with commercial accountability, offering a grounded view of what it takes to make technology work at sustained enterprise scale. So with that context, let me start with the big picture, and thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to join us. And if I could start with the first question, Nitin, to you, and then, we can take it ahead accordingly. At population scale, digital transformation is no longer about experimentation. What do you see as the most defining opportunities and constraints when transforming at this magnitude? And if I could also just add, where has India's experience been fundamentally different from global peers? Nitin, over to you.
Thank you, Meenu. Thank you to all of you, for having me here alongside Rajiv, who I deeply respect. For us, the way we look at digital transformation, and this might be a view that has evolved over a period of time, from my private sector days as well as here in SBI. Um, what it really means is that, of course, you can keep upgrading and modernizing your technology. You can always procure something which is available, is cutting edge. The only thing that banks like us or any other company has to make sure that your existing systems have some level of compatibility, or let's say, they don't break if you try and layer something on top of that. And in any case, a whole lot of modernization has been going on for the last few years. And it always does happen because technology does evolve and all companies do need to modernize. So from an SBI point of view, I think our view has been rather simple that because we serve a fairly large number of customers, nearly 530 million right now, and it grows at the rate of almost 65 to 70,000 a day. We need to be able to, one, make sure that we include everybody. Okay, we don't do things which are selectively available to a few people or selectively available to everyone. Everybody should have, an equitable access to the benefits of what technology can bring about. But that also means that we need to be able to do it in a way that they can relate to it. We just don't want to do something which people will find, or our customers, or some segments of our customers will find it difficult to relate to. Now, in that context, the opportunity is always there because the customer base is really very very diverse. From all kinds of like the street hawkers are our customers, and largest of the corporates are our customers. Government institutions are our customers. The government itself is, we are banker to the government as well. So we need to be sure that we have a context in whatever we do with our customers. Therefore, when we think of transformation, the underlying technology choices for us, one, they need to be able to manage and address the complexity or the diversity of our customer base. Two, they should also have the ability to uh, get purposed in a way that, it can mean different things for different people. And, you should not have a situation that one system is only meant for, let's say, corporate banking and you can't reuse it and you can't, or it's only meant for, let's say, wealth customers, you can't use it for let's say the street hawkers. So the applications or the underlying engineering is really about making sure that we have the ability to keep repurposing it based on our customer segments. The third is that we also need to have very high availability because for just the number of consumers who interact with us on a daily basis, it needs to be always available. So there is a very high emphasis on resilience. And from that point of view, the thinking is always that, okay, let's create capacity. Let's not let's not believe that if we are working at, let's say, 50% utilization today, we have another 2 years before we can get to 80%, 90%. So we will front end a lot of investments, on that, just on that basis. We don't mind building capacity which is lying unused for a shorter period of time because we do need to make sure that, it's always going to be available. So from that point of view, I think we've just been keeping pace with whatever has been happening in the Indian context and also in the global context in terms of the availability of technology, and just trying to make sure that whatever we do, one of the themes that we follow in SBI, I've heard this over and over again from many people, including the past chairman and the present chairman, is that we would want to remain relevant. And if we do have a legacy of 220 years, I think the only reason we've been able to, be here and doing and whatever we do today is because we have stayed relevant with times and we have stayed relevant to our customers. And therefore, that single theme drives many of our decisions.
A very interesting point you made about capacity, but maybe I'll come back to that little later. So, Rajiv, coming to you from your vantage point, working with large financial institutions, globally, what fundamentally changes when transformation moves from millions to hundreds of millions of users? And what do enterprises consistently underestimate at this level of scale?
Yeah, thank you, Minu. And Nitin, always a pleasure to meet with you and to be on a platform. You bring in enormous amount of perspective and experience to the discussion. And, as technology providers, we believe that large organizations and particularly financial institutions should be leading cutting edge, bleeding edge technology all the time to serve customers, right? One of the things, at least, that I've observed, that there is tremendous amount of responsibility that large organizations, large financial institutions have, is towards the people that they're serving. The largeness of financial institutions make their customers expect one fundamental thing, that is trust and security.
Hmm.
If you were to look at State Bank of India, people trust their retirement incomes and pensions with the bank because they know in State Bank of India we trust. There's a history of this organization. Therefore, that's a big responsibility on the financial institution. Now, when we look at technology being deployed at scale, particularly with 550 million customers at population scale with the bank, you know, it is a big challenge. I mean, the challenge is grows significantly as you grow from 50 million to 60 to 80, 100, 200. After 200, it's the same challenge, right? I mean, but there's no organization serving 200 million customers with this level of responsibility with them. The first thing is that you know, an organization of this scale would be serving customers on several channels. You know, one is the digital channel where where we are talking about is the subject, but they're also serving the customer in physical channels, right? The branches, they're serving people on telephone channels, they're serving people on all channels. And therefore, how do we, one of the challenges that we've seen, and Nitin himself once expressed to me, is that he is looking at addressing is how does a client get the same level of experience irrespective of the channel with which they are all actually engaging with the customer. So that's a big balance that these large institutions need to manage. Second important thing that we've seen is that, bad news spreads very fast. Can you imagine? It's not business and digital. Now business is digital, particularly. I mean, you look at Yono platform, right? It is business is digital. Okay. Now, when business is digital, it just needs two people to kind of have an experience which is not very good. And these two people, if they turn out to be the influencers on social media, they can cause enormous amount of reputational damage to these organizations and to our clients, right? And can effectively. So how does one look at mitigating it? Now, if one, so this is a very, very good fine balance that you need to kind of strike when we are dealing at this scale. Is you cannot look for complete perfection, that nothing will break under any circumstances whatsoever, because then you will never release anything. Okay. And second is that how do we actually make sure that you've taken all the necessary steps so that you don't create reputational risk to the organization, which can actually emerge from several places. Because trust is a very important binding principle between large financial institutions and their clients, right? So it's a tight balance. And now, therefore, as suppliers of technology to such organizations, we should recognize that. We have to recognize that. We have to recognize, therefore, that the nature of business contracts that we will write would need to be different for such organizations, because the responsibility that that these large financial institutions have, right? They're not only responsibility to its customers, its stakeholders, but also to the governments, because the kind of impact that they create in the building of the nation itself, right? So that is what we've seen and observed, and therefore, and we've had the fortune of being engaging with several large organizations, and uh, it seems like that they're slow to move, okay, but the movement is long term and it stays for long, and customers over a long period of time continue to build confidence in these organizations, primarily because irrespective of any short term miss outs, the organization stay true to the principle of process and risk mitigation, and therefore the customers can enjoy long-term associations with it. It's like I compare it with music on YouTube. Can come in and it can be popular with 20 million people in 2 hours, right? But then it fades away, right? But Beethoven lasts for hundreds of years. And because it's got the structure, it's got the appeal, it has got that generational value over periods of time. And that is what these large financial institutions are. And, one, especially one, when looks at State Bank of India and its history, uh, you see evidence of this particular thing, this analogy with music, with State Bank all the time. So that's what we see as digital transformation. Is it optional? The answer is no. It is, people are expecting to engage with their service providers when they want, where they want, and how they want, right? So that can be done only digitally. But at the same time, the large institutions need to stay true to their principles, and we as technology and service providers need to understand this fundamental thing. Nitin can actually has seen it from both ends of the equation, and his perspective will be valuable on this aspect.
So as rightly mentioned, Rajiv, you had a very interesting point to make that, you cannot be 100% absolutely sure about, building out and meeting that requirement, but you still have that intent there and the resilience. And of course, giving the B2 example does stay very relevant, So just understanding from Nitin, looking back at the large banking transformations, as we've been discussing. So which aspects have proven hardest to move at scale? Is it the customer journey, internal operating models, legacy integration, or governance and compliance? So like what trends to look deceptively simple early on, but do come out to be a challenge, and especially given the diverse customer base that you deal in. We just spoke about that also. So what would be your take on this?
Well, I think if you just look at the five or six things that make up for this whole digital transformation,
Mm-hmm,
you have the technology and the technology providers, you have the customer, you have
mm-hmm,
the overall ecosystem in which we operate and the customer also operates. The customers usually get exposed to many things, which in our business at least are digital interfaces, and they start shaping their expectations, their opinions about how they would like to deal with a digital interface of another brand. Could be a bank or could be any other brand also. You start liking one kind of an app and you expect that all my apps should behave the same way. They should all be exactly that. The fourth, of course, is the regulation, etc. The fifth is really the operating model. Okay. And in my experience, I think the operating models are not the hardest, but they require a little more effort, a lot more effort rather, as compared to just replacing technology or modernizing technology, because invariably customers are better informed. We tend to believe that we will be the ones to bring them to this new age of how they can interface with us. Yes, there is a category of those customers where you will have to spend on bringing them up, educating them, explaining to them, especially on the more topical things like security, etc. But in general, customers have some level of awareness, and they are also probably interfacing with many more people in their ecosystem, which are influencing them, which are also providing them with insights of, what is good, what is not good. There used to be this concept called research online, buy offline, before online became more prevalent. So people, even when they went to buy something, and people do this even today, they have 80-90%, they have made up their mind about what they want to do. Right. So it's not like, you just walk in and you are absolutely unsure of what you want to buy, how it should look like. So the simple thing is that the customers are probably more informed. So you need to be better prepared. And therefore, the operating models that, we have, for example, if you dealt with a bank, let's say 10 years ago, or maybe 15 or 20 years ago, and you wanted to get your account statement, right? And the only option to do that was that we would send you an email or by post or by courier. Uh, Today, it's a non-issue, right? Because customers are not saying that, listen, why should I have to ask you for this? It should be always available to me, right? And therefore, if the operating model doesn't enable that, which means that digitally I can get my statement when I want, it is always available to me. But let's say I'm interfacing with a banker in a branch, and the banker tells me that come back tomorrow, I'll keep it ready. The customer is not going to like it. Or let's say you get all your answers to any query that you have on the app, or let's say through a bot, instantly. And you talk to a person, could be a contact center, could be in the branch, and that person takes the usual time as defined in the operating process to say that, okay, for this, our turnaround time is 24 hours. For that, our turnaround time is 48 hours. So it just creates a very different sort of a disconnect in the customer's mind, that here I can get answers in a millisecond, and there you're telling me that you will take 24 hours or whatever time, or even if you have to wait for half an hour for something like that. So therefore, the whole challenge for us has been that how do you, one, like Rajiv was saying, that how do we consistently provide these experiences? Now our bankers in the branches cannot become digital assistants, but we can certainly supplement their skills through knowledge boards, through process efficiencies, through redesigning the underlying rails that we have. And this is exactly what we've done in our new Yono. So the rails that we've built, and that's why I was saying, before we started this discussion, it was an engineering problem much more than just the customer journeys. We had to build capacity which can be used and reused on an omni-channel basis between the digital applications and even in the branch. So today, when a customer will go to the branch after we finish the implementation and the migration, the customers can actually go to the branch and get exactly the same experience in the same time, because the underlying rails are going to be the same. They are not going to pull up another application or throw a form at you and say that, okay, just fill this form. And tomorrow, when we are going and meeting customers outside, the same rails will again get used to deploy journeys for our people who are going to meet customers. So that part is always, the more difficult, because you need consensus. There is a defined way, established way, a successful way of doing businesses. And in my experience, the the most intense debates have been around, I know how to run my business. Okay. Or, somebody will say that, no, it doesn't work like this. Or somebody will say that, listen, I think I know it better. So all point of views are absolutely valid, but then you have to build consensus and say that, yes, like Rajiv was saying, that digital is the way of doing business. It is not just a additional property that you bring in. So that, to my mind, has been amongst the not the hardest, but yeah, probably a higher level of
It's
difficulty.
more attention or focus also. Yeah. So, bothly, if I could request both the gentlemen to also just give a little bit on the legacy integration, because, of course, you would be having a lot of legacy in place also. So, even as a partner, Rajiv, what's been the experience for you all over there? Like, when it comes to integrating, and is that really truly a challenge, or how does that pan out?
Technology challenges are can be they take testing needs to be done properly. I mean, I think we need to
True.
validate the 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 interfaces
Mhm.
relentlessly, right? And do that. And technology is evolving, and which is addressing some of these aspects very carefully. The biggest question that needs to be addressed all the time is about data.
Absolutely.
And because data has been captured in different ways in different applications, and used in and how do you assimilate it together and then leverage it for the right purpose. We actually did a survey, and now data's relevance, particularly as we are trying to draw inferences from our data using large language model techniques, uh, it is very, very relevant as to what is the state in which our data is, and how do we leverage the data and work it. That happens to be the biggest challenge, and often trivialized and often not understood very clearly. We did a survey with the help of Gartner. This was about 18 months ago, to just check for data. How ready do customers feel that their data is to be ready for usage in to draw inferences using AI techniques, right? And to our surprise, the answer came to be a very low 4%. Now things have changed over the 18 months, but that is the degree of readiness that we found that the customers had. And now,
Only 4%. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was an underwhelming number. Now, obviously, it all is a function of where did we do the survey and all of that. But still,
Mhm.
even with that respect, the number came out to be so
Abysmally
data.
low. Yeah.
Yeah, data continues to be the biggest ask, right? And we've tried different ways in which to leverage data across various applications, like particularly when large financial institutions have had clients which have been served across various applications for several periods of time. And that happens to be the case. Uh, in terms of integration with legacy technology, those problems have been there for some time, and there are good solutions to that. And the important thing is validation and testing should be done in detail, and there is no end to it, particularly in large organizations where
True.
scale is important. Second thing
Absolutely.
is performance is a very important element. You know,
Mhm.
if we were to give clients response times, which were which are even in seconds, and particularly when you are see when a person walks into a bank, they're quite happy to wait for 5 minutes in a line to get served, right? Or 5 minutes is good SLA. Actually, sometimes you can getting served properly physically. But can you imagine taking 30 seconds with a hourglass turning in front of you for a screen to respond, right? So that is too long. And when you're getting the service at a fraction of a time, but still the experience is not very good. So I would say that the two big things that we need to watch out for all the time is is data and performance, and of course, you know, great amount of validation and testing to make sure that all the interfaces are working right and continue to evolve as you know we go with newer versions of software.
Sure. Absolutely. Nitin, would you like to add something, or we could move on to the next point?
No, I agree with Rajiv. It's just that there has been this problem of data being in multiple silos,
Absolutely. Yes.
disconnected. But over time, as banks started to deploy a more relationship-led approach outside
Hmm.
the branches, wanted to get more insights, and ever since banks have been using analytics or any kind of insights-led interactions, there had been this need there was this need to at least consolidate the data, create a common system of record. So to a large extent, I would say that journey has been, we've been on that journey for a long enough time. Uh,
Excited.
and the other
Yes.
interesting thing is that legacy data is not, it over a period of time, it has marginal utility. So the more important data is the recent data. And as you would know, as we, keep reading about this, that, we are generating twice as much data as the previous 100 years, every year, every 2 years. So that data, I think, is mostly machine generated because the interactions are more digital. The
Certainly.
problem with the earlier data was that it was all human entered data, or, you were converting records from paper to systems, and there was always a lot of error and, misspellings and missing
Mhm.
data fields, etc. To a large extent, I think that has been solved for the simple fact that, banks especially have been using data science for a long enough time, almost 15, 20 years now. And, uh, I think progressively we will have to keep investing in how we manage our data, how we store our data, how do we run our processes with data. And now, of course, there are different considerations also with the DPDP Act, etc.
Absolutely. So rightly mentioning, we are speaking about data, the LLMs and things like that. So talking about agentic AI, AI, of course, being the buzzword and the intent that the world is moving to. So agentic AI has been receiving, of course, significant attention today. From an enterprise perspective, how should agentic capabilities, be positioned alongside other priorities like your customer experience platforms, data modernization, automation, for that matter, cloud? So what does it really warrant? A strategic focus versus remaining a tactical tool? What's your thought on that?
You asking me,
Yes, Nitin, if you could share, on the
Okay.
agentic AI attention that we are giving and how relevant would it really be?
So our own view, which we formed over the last year and a half or so,
Hmm.
is that we need to move in some kind of phased manner. The easier part is to just provide some tools to people which assist them, intelligent bots, knowledge bots, etc. Which is the which is something that we've done. I'm sure many other banks have also done. The second part is that you start augmenting people's work or their skills by providing them with assistants which will do a part of their work. We are already seeing that deployment in, let's say, coding. Okay, I don't think anybody is writing a full application through AI right now. Maybe the time will come in future, but people are parts of the code are being assigned to agents, which are writing the code. The third really is the autonomous. So starting with assisting, going to augmentation, and the third being autonomous. AI really takes you to that whole level of autonomy, the autonomous working, which again means that the operating models which were changed through digital transformation will again undergo a change. So today the journeys are stitched, let's say, on the basis of a front-end application and microservices in the back end and the core applications, which could have been modernized or may not have been modernized. But I think most banks have found a way of making sure, like in SBI, we have a middleware called the enterprise bus where all the microservices get exposed. So we don't need to go to the core banking again and again. But if we have to introduce agentic AI, it is going to come and replace some of the workflows because agentic AI works with a multitude of agents. They are conversing with each other. They are, handing over tasks to each other. So we have started experimenting with that. We are trying to build some, low risk sort of workflows or existing low risk workflows which can be moved to agentic AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the moment it can only complement what we are already doing. And over a period of time, if it really works like the way it is expected to or
Mm-hmm.
believed to, it may start replacing some of the heavy duty workflows also. And you can leave some of it to function on an autonomous basis.
So any POC at place or any specific use cases that has been identified and has gone to like the pilot stage or any thoughts there or any progress that you could
So
share?
we've done the first and the second part we've done obviously, which is the
Okay.
assist part, we've deployed at scale. We have
Mm-hmm.
something called as Ask SBI, which is trained on an open source LLM.
Okay.
It's trained for all our internal processes, circulars, SOPs,
Okay.
operating from 2000, I think 13 or 14 onwards. Anything which is
Mm-hmm.
valid even today and hasn't undergone a change, we've trained on almost about 15,000 documents. Now, this is a
Mm-hmm.
repository that people would otherwise use for, let's say, in a branch interaction, a customer is standing in front of them and they want to know something. They will pull
True.
that up and, so today we've converted that into a knowledge bot, which is very contextual in natural language. And similarly, we've done a few others. Let's say one of the pain points in banking has been how do you settle a deceased account?
Yes.
Usually the paperwork, because of the legal implications, etc., can get complicated, and mostly you will
True.
find customers complaining. So that was the first one that we did. We created this whole knowledge bot on disease portal, and we also created a workflow, to some extent, automated workflow to make sure that one, our people are informed. They don't have to
Mm-hmm.
search for answers or send customers back saying that, or give wrong answers, which could be even worse.
True.
So that part has been done. The augmenting part, we have started experimenting with coding. Some
Okay.
code that we write internally, we are trying to experiment with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the last part, which is autonomous, I think we are developing some of those workflows internally right now. And we are at the moment going to be implementing. I mean, we've started the whole process of onboarding a consulting partner, but we are
Okay.
going to be implementing a full AI technology stack itself, which will have multiple components. Now, once we do that over the next
Uh-huh.
few quarters,
Mm-hmm.
we will have the ability to, intelligently keep automating our workflows rather than,
Great.
bringing in plugins, which we will try and either they'll work or not work, or
Absolutely.
have, let's say, 20 different types of people providing us 20 different use case led
True.
solutions. We will own the stack and we would make sure that our people are skilled, and which is the other thing that we're doing right now, that our people should be skilled and trained in a way that they can make their own agentic AI workflows.
So the
So that will
ownership
be,
will be you, so it would be easier to handle kind of a thing.
I'm sorry.
Something ownership will be in-house so that, it's
Yeah.
easier to kind of
Yeah.
navigate and understand.
In any case,
Like
all the work that we do in AI so far has been all in-house.
in-house, yes.
Yeah.
So, as a part of the next conversation, we will be moving deeper into what it takes to engineer seamless experiences at scale across channels, systems, and customer expectations. Do continue watching.